Hi virtual conventioneers, my name is Bonnie Lowe. I'm here at the Village Doll Shop in Adamstown, Pennsylvania, where I'm an intern for Becky and Andy Ourant. We are here today to learn a bit about the Bru Bebes from them. And as a new doll dealer and collector, I'm really lucky to be able to learn from two sets of in-laws, Becky and Andy at the Village Doll Shop, and Jay and Connie Lowe. Let's go in and see if they're ready for us. Hey guys!
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm here with my friends from the Virtual Doll Convention, and
Hi everyone.
hi. Wow, the shop looks pretty great.
Yeah, take a look around.
Take a look around and then we'll get started on the program.
Wow, man, the shop looks so good.
Well, we kept it decorated for Christmas just for this event, so we thought we'd keep the tree up.
Oh, it looks so nice, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're all really excited to be here to do this program today.
We're excited to have you.
Wow, look at all the Brus in the shop, you guys.
Yeah, well, we set up some examples to show you, and we're going to do an interactive program with a slide presentation as well as actual dolls, and then we'll show you some parts and pieces later on. And
Awesome.
The secret to this whole thing will be you're going to have to ask a lot of questions.
All right,
And
well,
we welcome everyone from the Virtual Doll Convention, and we really want to thank Rachel Hoffman for making this happen.
Yes.
We think it's a great thing for the doll world to learn, to have fun. So I'm going to take the camera and film you guys. And
Talking about Brus.
Talking about Brus.
all right, here you go. It's still filming, so.
All right, great, Bonnie.
I think what we'd like to point out to you first is probably just this is the golden age of the Bru Bebe. The ones that are standing right here are the pinnacle of the Bru Bebe factory. Now they started making poupée dolls in the 1860s, and through the 70s they continued. And the doll market was changing, and the Bebe became the new thing. And in 1878, Gemot won the first prize at the Paris Exposition for his Bebe, called the Bebe and Castable.
So did he make the first Bebe then?
No, actually, Gemot didn't make the first Bebe. The first Bebe credited for the French Bebe would be Steiner.
Okay.
And Steiner made a lot of mechanical Bebes, interactive. There was like the crying, kicking Steiner and different, they had a lot of patents. But Gemot really just made a solid doll with a jointed composition body, and he called his doll Bebe and Castable. And so in 1878 when he won, the next thing that happens is Bru decides to develop the Bebe and Pew.
Bebe and Pew.
Bebe and Pew simply stands for, Bebe and Castable means unbreakable. Now,
Okay.
it only refers to the body, obviously. The head is still breakable.
Yeah.
So the Bebe and Pew has a kid body, and Pew stands for kid.
Okay.
So he felt that that was a real luxury sort of item, and that the kid would feel more like natural skin.
Right.
For a child. Now
I was just gonna, you see, you've got Bebe and Pew, but it also says Brevity Model. What does that mean? What is that about?
stands for the head models.
Okay, so Bebe and Pew is the kid body.
Right.
And Brevity is about the head model?
Yes. Now it's only, Brevity means patented.
Okay.
Collectors, when they first started finding these dolls, say 60, 70, 80 years ago, they couldn't identify them because there's no marks.
Okay.
There's no markings on the head. And they undressed it, and on the body was a label that said Brevity.
Oh, okay, so that's a way to figure out these were his dolls.
They were his dolls, so
Okay.
they named that doll Brevity. And that's how that happened. So now you'll see, if I can do this, you can see that's the original model.
Okay.
Now, anecdotally, they say that he used a French sculptor to design this particular face called Ferdinand Barbadine.
Okay.
Now, it's not documented, but it's likely because this is 1879, and the same period, Jameau hired another famous French sculptor called Carrier Belus to design his long face, Jameau. So it is likely not documented. Now you can see this is the fashion doll, the poupée, that was their quintessential model at the time. It's, you know, has like a lady's face. Some say it was modeled after Empress Eugenie. It has a slightly smiling face, very pleasant looking doll. So you can see her body. What do you think about that body?
So this is the first Bebe body?
Right, that's the baby and Pew.
It looks like it must have came directly after the poupée, because I can see that they've got the same square cut up here on the shoulder plate. And they've got this same U-shaped stitching down here at the bottom of the torso. And it just kind of looks like a similar doll. I mean, this one's bigger and has bigger feet compared to the poupée, but...
Right, you can see they changed, you know, a little bit of this stitching through here to accommodate that. But they still have the same basic gussets and the same pattern. And now the original, I've seen original drawings for the poupée and Pew body, and they show it with kid arms, full kid hands, but I believe it made more sense when they actually put the doll into production to have bisque hands. It's much more natural, and they were looking for a natural look.
Yeah, that looks a lot more natural than the hands on the fashion.
Exactly, they're small. And now you can see the facial painting, and I think that's important.
It looks like she's fully made up. You can see she's got some mauve eyeshadowing
Yep.
up here and the nice rosy cheeks, and her lips are so pretty. And
and you see that, you know, the nose modeling, the eye, look at the way the eyelashes are painted, the artistry in that.
they're so fine, and how they're all individual eyelashes. And what I really like this design on the eye. What's the story with that?
Well, the eyes are called paperweight.
Paperweight eyes.
And there's a spiral threading that goes through that. We'll show you later the actual, well, I can show you right now.
Okay.
Here we go. Now here is a paperweight eye. And look at that.
She's beautiful.
Yeah, and this is a
Bad camera work.
Brevity. And this is the Brevity close-up. Now you can see, you know, what you can't see there, because that's, of course, a different doll.
Yeah.
But look at the modeling. Feel it.
beautiful.
Feel right here. Feel the ledge right there.
Wow.
They actually made an eyelid.
Yeah.
And then they blushed it.
That's beautiful.
And, I mean, it's made up like almost like today's supermodels.
Yeah.
They use it, you know, for the contouring. And then look at her cheeks, and look at this.
That's so pretty. I'm admiring right here this little chin she's got, all blushed up too. And
Tiny little dimple.
Tiny little dimple.
Oh, they miss no detail, I'll tell you.
yeah.
Yeah, so that is her. Now, this particular model that I'm showing you is, I think we have her on the screen. Here she is. Now, this is a sister of hers.
Okay.
This doll was called Baby Model. Because they decided that they wanted a deluxe model. Now the Bebe and Pew would have been the more standard model, but Bru had a standard fashion on a kid body, and he also had the deluxe fashion with the jointed body. So here she is,
Wonderful.
undressed, so fully articulated.
The kids would be able to play with her a lot because she can do all these different poses.
And easier to dress and undress.
Easier to dress and undress.
They can be very difficult.
Yeah, I saw on that picture you had showed me the kid arms on both the fashion and the first Bebe. They just kind of hung there. And these ones definitely would make it easier to dress and play with.
Right. And the more articulation, you know, the more you get, the more play value you get.
Yeah.
So, now look at, this is the wood body that he designed for the fashion. Now, what do you see that's different?
So on the Bebe, she doesn't have the shoulder plate. It's just on the wooden torso, and It's straighter here. It's like I want to say chunkier.
Yep, it's more child shaped.
Yeah, it looks like the lady has a waist.
But and unfortunately, this is a picture. We had left her underwear on in the picture, but her waist is jointed.
Okay.
It's actually swivels.
Okay, so she had a bit more articulation right there.
Yeah, she had a little bit more swagger, but
But this one definitely looks more like a child.
Right. They straightened out the body and made it more childlike because it's more proportioned, like the baby in Cassable that Jameau was selling.
Right.
So, and here I suppose we should back up. And I don't know why that's not doing that, but that's okay. This is actually a pure Brevity.
Okay.
This is Brevity Bebe and Pew.
Mm-hmm.
This one has the kid body, and this one has the arms. So now feel how those arms just sort of hang. They're actually just stitched at the top. They're one long tube of leather.
Mm-hmm.
They do have a gusset here. Some of the smaller ones don't.
Okay.
And the big shoulder plate, and she swivels, and I guess one of the trademark characteristics of a Brevity would be the real round face, the pale bisque, and just the general childlike proportions.
So while the Brevity you said wasn't marked, so this one, does it just have numbers
Oh yeah.
on her?
This particular one is marked 2/L.
Okay.
Now there's a different sizing system for early dolls.
Okay.
And it only pertains to some of the early circle dots may have it as well, but primarily the Brevités will have a /0 system. The 0 Brevity is about 15.5 inches tall.
Okay.
Later on, like the 0 Bru Bebe will only be about 9 inches. Okay. So you can see how they reduce the sizing. So she's marked 2/0, but look at her shoes.
Her shoes are marked with 2 zeros.
Right.
And this swirly bee in a circle down here.
Yeah.
So I guess these shoes are for her because 2 zeros and she was a
Exactly, they
2-0.
corresponded. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So when they were dressing, they could just go into the bin and grab the one that matched the size on her head. So, and a lot of the early Brevités did have skin wigs. Skin wigs the skin wigs did get eaten up by bugs and things like that. This is a replaced skin wig.
Okay.
And there are beautiful ones available. I guess we'll move on to the circle dot next.
Okay.
Do it. Okay, we'll continue past that. And we are now looking at period photographs of children with their circle dots. So how great is that?
God. Wow, look at those dolls.
I know. I think a lot of collectors don't realize that these dolls were really played with. And they were loved.
It's
and
hard
cherished.
to imagine.
I know. But you can see, look at the smile on her face holding her doll. Mm-hmm. This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
To know that they were loved then and they're loved now. Mm-hmm. So this is a classic circle dot face.
She's beautiful.
Yes. Now what do you notice about her face? This is a new face mold.
So it looks like her mouth is a bit more open, and maybe that her cheeks are a bit. Her cheeks are different, but I don't know what the word is for that.
Almost like they dropped them.
Okay.
It's almost like they're fuller dropped.
Yeah.
Almost. This doll is now younger.
Yeah, because when we were looking at first, they still looked a bit like ladies, and this one looks more like a child.
Exactly. And this model was probably designed to accommodate the, I probably should show you this first before we get into why they made this.
We don't see a number now. What's this marking? You said circle dot, so circle dot marking.
Yeah, I know. That's another thing that early collectors, looking for a mark and looking for an attribution, pulled up the wigs and saw the circle dot. And they named them circle dot Brus.
Sorry,
But that's okay.
New technology for me.
Well, what happened was when they pulled up the wig and saw that, they named these dolls Circle Dot. Then it became obvious that that circle dot was simply an indentation of where the key was put in for the nursing brew.
Okay, so so the dolls that had the key, that would be a good place to punch the hole to put the key through.
Exactly. So
okay.
Well, all they did was open the mouth, and you can see that there's a bladder and there's a little gasket that presses down, and then there's the key, and the doll actually can suck water or fluids.
That's amazing.
I know, it is amazing. And that's where the need for that new baby face came in.
Yeah, because you're not going to give a bottle to a lady doll.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So.
Wow, look at her. Bebe Gourmand.
Bebe Gourmand.
She's got a tongue. What's that for?
Yeah. Well, think about gourmand.
Gourmet.
Gourmet.
So it has
Exactly.
something to do with food. Okay.
So this doll can eat. And that tongue actually depresses.
So this doll can eat. All right. They had a doll like that when I was little. They made a Cabbage Patch that you could feed. So that's pretty cool.
That's pretty interesting. Well, I guess they've been making dolls that could eat since 1882.
It's hard to imagine that they had that technology in 1882.
I know, and what technology they had.
So how did feeding this doll work?
Well, you put a pellet in the tongue, under the tongue, and there's a zinc tube that runs down through the body, and they designed special bisque legs.
Hey, it comes out through the feet.
And out through the feet comes the pellet, and look at what they did. Look at the shoe.
The shoe's got a flap so you can get your pellet. You don't even have to take your shoes off the doll.
Quite the technology.
That's
huh?
awesome.
And no mess, no fuss, no mess. They didn't,
But I'm sure there was a kid somewhere who tried to put real food in
Oh,
her
I'm
doll.
sure some brother. I'm sure some brother somewhere did that. And probably that's true because not many of these survive. So that's why. Now look at this.
Bebe music.
Always trying to create something new. He now has added a Swiss music box to the Model style body.
Okay.
And you will see right here, there's a key in the back.
Okay, so that's where they have the key on this one.
Yep, and it plays music. It has a beautiful tone to it because the music box is inside the wood body.
Oh, so like a violin.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It deepens the tone. So actually it was a great place to, insert a music box, and you can see here the key, and of course you can see where it was installed in the body, and you can see clearly the circle dot mark.
Yeah, even though I wouldn't need it for this because the key is somewhere completely different.
Exactly. But
So now that we can see in the head, what kind? So this is all bisque.
Yes.
Is there a certain style to this? How are these heads made?
Pressed
Pressed bisque?
bisque.
Okay.
That was the technology of the day, and probably the finest dolls that were created have pressed bisque. And it's just handmade, hand painted, eyes are cut by hand. That's why you have an endless variety. I mean, these dolls are from the same mold, these two dolls are from the same mold, and then these dolls are all from the same mold.
And they look so different.
They all look different. There's an endless variety. It's sort of like your Cabbage Patch dolls. You remember how you could have like different color hair, eyes, and everything you could order up, and you could have a million.
You should tell her how rare a baby musique is.
A baby musique is the ultimate rarity. I've only ever seen a few. The Bebe Gourmand is very rare, but this is extremely rare.
Okay.
So that's just something to think about when you are out there in the field trying to find it. If you happen to find yourself at a auction or estate sale, you might want to call me. Now we get to what is considered by a lot of collectors as the quintessential face of a brew.
Okay.
Because all this time, Leon Casimir Bru is sort of developing his Bebe. And he's making, they're beautiful, they're gorgeous, they're pretty. But then he gets to the last phase of his
I
ownership.
think Andy has a question.
No, you keep turning your back. I just want everybody to see the
Oh,
pretty
okay.
face.
Hi guys.
The last phase of his ownership of the company. This is about 1883, and he designs this model.
Okay.
And it is beautiful. I mean, you have to agree. I mean,
She is so beautiful.
these are all gorgeous, but there's something about the softness of this final phase.
Mm-hmm.
So he meets Henry Chevreau, and I believe Henry wants to buy his company and really perfect this doll. So this is this is probably one of the very last versions of a Leon Casimir Bru. And then we shift over here to the Henry Chevreau style Brus. And I'll
I
point
love
out,
them. They're so pretty.
yes, yes. And you can see he made, let me show you. Well, this is her.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Okay. And this is, from what I can figure out, just from, I'm a collector too and a dealer, this is probably the earliest face because it still looks a lot like her. Look at these two together.
Yeah. They look like sisters still.
They still look like sisters in the same style eye and real shorter face. He'll elongate the face a little bit more later on. And she's on the chunkier toddler style body and without the swing joint here, just the solid arm. And then he moves over. I didn't point out, I really have been amiss because
Wow.
this doll is the bomb.
Look at her.
Now, interestingly, this doll is Marc Brugune,
Okay.
but she has a face of a circle dot. So she's right in this transitional period when they started to mark their dolls, but still use the older face molds. So
Okay.
this is probably right around 1883. But this is a classic, black Bru Bebe. There was a market worldwide for these dolls. These dolls were not just sold in Paris, and there was a lot of countries that were buying these. And this doll was made, to be shipped to a country, south of France, and made in the same style of it has the Chevreau body, it has the biscuit arms. Look at these eyes. Now look at those eyes popping out.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
Wow.
pretty tricky making a brown bisque doll.
Yeah.
So, hi honey.
Hi.
So I just wanted to point that out because she is right on the cusp of these and these. I mean, it gets a little confusing because there's a lot of stuff being made all in this 1883, 1884 period. Because you got to remember that this is 1879, and he sells his company. Henry Chevreau buys the company at the end of '83 and sells it to Paul Girard in 1889. Completely changes it, and he marks them with a Brugionard. It all changes. These are all marked either brevetés or circle dots or Brugunes, not Brugionard. So now they were very well known for their couturier costumes. This is just an original trade card, and I think they probably spell it out here. The Bru's dolls are the newest, the prettiest, the strongest, and the best jointed of any of Parisian make.
I believe it.
Yeah, I know, but how do you like that for
What an advertisement. Ours are the best.
Ours are the best. No way about it. And I'm sure Jamo just loved that card. So, and he obviously made many different styles. And this would be one of his first attempts at jointing the body. Now, they were also well known. Now that's her there. But
here
this
she
doll,
is.
this doll is a bride. And Victorians were very sentimental, so a lot of them had their bridal gowns cut down and made. But look at the corseted back. Look at this.
Wow.
It is amazing, the detail. And this doll was put away for posterity. It just was found in this condition. This doll probably was made in 1885, and how many years is that? 133? 133 years later, here she is.
She's so
and look at the
amazing.
train, and everything is still there.
Beautiful.
And you will see that somewhere along the way, she lost her husband. Oh no! No, I'm hoping it's just to just the separation that they'll be back together someday. I'd love to find the groom.
Well, you should note that that's a different.
Oh, it's a different doll, but I'm just saying
It's
that
it's
they
a
did come
factory
with husbands. But she could have had a husband at some point, which I'm still on the lookout for. Now the Bru Bebe face was also made in brown bisque as well. And you see how the difference between a Bru Bebe and a circle dot? Mm-hmm. You see the little tongue?
Yeah, she's got a little tongue poking out.
And you see the shorter little nose? Mm-hmm. And of course the paperweight eyes are a little bit more almond shaped now. Just subtle differences.
Yeah.
But they always have this trademark, real turned up little nose. Mm-hmm. And you can always spot them. And you can clearly see the tongue.
Yeah, now you can really clearly see it here.
Yeah. Now this little one is a size 1, very coveted size.
Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of closed mouth dolls. Are any of the Brus open mouth? Aside from like the ones we saw
Just
that were for feeding?
Yeah, just the ones that would either be nursing or, like I say, feeding.
Okay.
Now they did sometimes mold teeth onto a circle dot head. I don't have an example here, but you will occasionally see little tiny molded teeth, but they didn't open the mouth. They just molded
Okay, you
teeth.
could just see a little bit of teeth.
Yeah. And
Okay.
sometimes they, the tongues are more pronounced because the Bru Bebe has a really high upper lip. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you see a lot of tongue modeling.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that or not.
Wow, she looks good.
Yeah. That's a classic. That doll is probably their, classic model that this is original clothes. And most of these dolls are in original clothes. Mm-hmm. And you can see how fitted the Bru clothing was as opposed to some of the other dolls that are more like Kate Greenaway style, sort of, not as shaped. But they still wanted to keep the shape because they were showing off the kid body. Mm-hmm. They like to mix colors. They like to use luxury fabrics, satins, velvets, lots of lace, big ribbons, straw hats, plumes, whatever they could get, whatever was.
So these were not cheap dolls.
Oh no, and we may want to remind you that they're not cheap today.
I know.
They are expensive, but.
So why are they still so expensive today?
Because of their rarity, their desirability, and just, a lot of times the price is kind of based on the condition and the originality and just the beauty of the doll when it was made. I mean, what you're seeing here is exactly what they looked like 130 years ago.
Right.
So that's what we today as collectors look for. We're looking for a special look in the face, special painting. Now, if you have a more affordable way maybe to own a Bru would be to accept a small bit of damage.
Like a hairline?
A hairline, a little repair in the back. Sometimes they have broken fingers. Sometimes they have no clothes. Sometimes their bodies are leaking and dirty. Another thing that can happen with kid bodies is they'll assume like sort of a sitting position because they're cork stuffed.
Okay.
And they will absorb some moisture and the cork will sort of blow up and it'll sort of expand the kid. But, hope springs eternal, and I always think that if you think you're going to own a Bru, you probably could own a Bru.
That'd be great.
How'd you get your first Bru, Becky?
Well, I started collecting at 12 years old.
Wow.
And, of course, I was reading a lot of the early books on dolls. In high school, I used to bring my Coleman's Encyclopedia with me and study it at study hall. I had the early Dimples and Sawdust books that were just full of Brus and ATs and all these dolls. And of course, I loved Jumeau's, but then I started seeing Brus. And I was lucky. I lived in New England, and I knew a very famous doll dealer named Grace Dyer. And she used to do antique shows, and we would go to these, my mother and I would go to these antique shows, and we'd buy dolls from her, and she'd get wonderful things. So one day I got the courage up to say, I was about 14 years old, and I said, Grace, I'd really want to own a Bru. And she says, well, dear, I'll put you on my list. I'm not kidding. That's how it was back then. Now, embarrassingly to say, this was the 70s. So anyways, she puts me on this list, and that's how you got a Bru, you know, from her, because everybody wanted Brus back then. This is Massachusetts, outside of Boston, and everybody, you know, there's a big doll study club there still is today. So I waited and waited, and then one day I went down to get the mail, and there's a letter from Grace in my mailbox, and she says, Dear Becky, I have your Bru.
What'd you get?
Well, she said, you can come down and to the Quincy Antique Show. And I forget the date, but I was so excited. And my mother and I got in the car on a Saturday morning. We drove to Quincy. And Grace used to set up a big booth display, and she would have drawers, like I like drawers today. So she would have a dresser. And she says, oh dear, she says, I have your Bru here. And she opens up the drawer, and inside is a Bebe Gourmand. I didn't even know what it was.
Oh man!
But all I knew was it had bisque legs, and I thought, this is like the greatest Bru I ever saw.
That's amazing.
And she was dressed like Red Riding Hood. She had original clothes. She had a red cape. She was wonderful. She was wonderful. And she cost me $1,100. Now, for a kid making babysitting money and picking strawberries, that was a lot of change. But I put it on layaway, and which I always recommend to every collector. Put an expensive doll on layaway. It's better to buy something great than something cheap and regret it. So it took me about 4 or 5 months. I paid it off, and I had my first Bru.
That's amazing.
So that's my first Bru story. So, and I've loved Brus ever since, collected them ever since, and
I can see you've got quite a few here.
We'll never stop wanting them. We'll see her in a minute. I kept her on the table over here because I wanted to show her her shoes, and she's all original. She's pretty adorable. What else have I got to show you?
I see her. She's right here.
This doll is wonderful. I'll tell you why. I wish I brought down the photograph. This doll looks exactly like my grandmother. Now, for people to say that these dolls are too idealized and too beautiful, it's not true. I have a picture of my grandmother taken at the turn of the century. She has the same curls, the same face, the same little turned up nose.
Wow.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. And oddly enough, I have a picture of my mother from the 30s that looks just like this.
Wow.
So they really do look like children. Now, I've obviously kept these two because they have a family resemblance, and that's probably a lot of the reasons you keep dolls sometimes.
Yeah.
Doll collecting is very emotional, and if it doesn't hit you, you're not going to keep it. So that's the story with her, and I think we've probably gone through all of these. So I'm going to have Andy show you the real teaching tools, which is talking about the bodies, the press bisque. He'll show you the shoulder plates, and he'll show you the construction.
Wonderful.
So
All right.
I'm going to hand it over to Andy right now.
Awesome.
I'll give you this.
This has been great so far.
Oh.
Now it's my turn to see if I can use the camera.
And Becky's going to help me out as we go here. But we've laid out a lot of bits and pieces, parts, and because we're looking at all the dress dolls, but it's nice to see them in pieces and understand when you're buying a great doll like this, you have to think about not just the head, but also the body, the condition, is it original, and understanding, is this the correct body for the correct head, and all these things. So we start with the Brevity era.
All right,
Bonnie.
let me come in closer.
Yep. So we have one here that's just on the bisque shoulder plate. And I want to show you a few things. First of all, you guys talked about pressed bisque. This is a good example of pressed bisque.
Oh yeah.
It's just a straight rim. When they start pouring dolls in France and Germany, then you get a rim, a thicker rim that they trim off. But when it comes straight up like that, that's pressed bisque. Now down inside there, you can see that spring.
Yeah.
So pan back a little bit. I'll show you this. This is what it looks like outside of the head.
Okay.
This is the attachment that they used for all three of the models we're talking about today. Brevity, Circle Dot, Bru Bebe, they all use this attachment. So when you look down in the head and you see that metal spring, you're looking at an original attachment.
Okay.
And the way it worked, it has a spring. This leather was the liner that sat inside the head, and then the best plate would be under this metal piece, and that's the original wing nut. But that's how they were originally connected.
Wow.
So let's talk about the breastplate on a Circle Dot. So you can see on the Circle Dots, on the Brevity, pardon me, everybody. So I'm going to show you the comparison. In the Brevity period, you have a very straight breastplate, just like the fashion dolls. And when he develops the Circle Dot, he's making it more childlike. So pan back.
Oh, I'm working on it.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. Sorry everybody for my bad camera work, but I'm working on it.
This is our first time.
This is new to us. Completely brand new. So look, you can see in the Circle Dot period, he develops the breastplate, and it has molded breasts. So it's much more lifelike in Circle Dot. So we're looking at the Brevity Body.
Oh, hold on. Now we're looking at you.
Nope, the eye candy's down here. This is a typical Brevity body, and this is an early one. And you have to remember that when he first made his dolls, he didn't mark the heads, and he marked the bodies, but he just marked it Bebe Brevity with this paper label. Later on, he realized that he needed to keep his name trademarked, and he adds Bru Bebe Brevity onto those labels. But this is an early body.
Okay.
And it's very much like the fashion bodies, how it's strapped over the breastplate. Later on, the breastplate sits on top, and they use straps to keep them down around the body. But this is a typical Brevity feature, that it's square cut like this, up over the shoulder. And also typical is these flapped arms, and then they run straight down the arm.
Stitched on.
They're just stitched on. There's
Okay.
actually a
Nothing
piece.
fancy.
There's a piece of wire that goes right through the torso into that cork body. That was another great feature of this that he introduced with the Bebe, was that he was the first to stuff with cork instead of wood shavings. It made the body lighter. So when you had a large Bebe,
Pick one up. Just feel it. Just feel it.
Wow, it's so light.
light as a feather. And so when you had a larger size, it wouldn't weigh down the body. So I think he was trying to keep his light in comparison to the other manufacturers who, when they have a bigger doll, they were getting heavy for the children.
Yeah,
So
if kids are supposed to be playing with this,
Right.
they're going to want a lighter doll.
I'll take it back from you. Now, you can see it has the gussets, just like a fashion poupée body.
Yeah.
The larger dolls have gussets at the elbow. That's the only joining there. But the smaller dolls do not have the gusset. And then you can see how the hand is just attached right to the body there. That's very Brevity. And you see that also in the Circle Dot. But this is a very good example of a Brevity hand. This one's perfect. So we call it sort of the banana hand, because it's more all collected together.
It's like a hand of bananas just hanging.
So the definition later on will show you, we'll get more.
They'll split the fingers.
Right, correct.
Okay. I have a question.
Go ahead.
So we saw it on the screen, and now that we're seeing it down here on the body, we've got this U-shaped stitching. Do all kid bodies have stitch like that?
I think what happened was, if you count the amount of pieces of leather in a fashion body, they have about 16 pieces, and I think he was trying to make it easier to make these. The Bebe has about 12 pieces of, or the Brevity has about 12 pieces of leather. He kept that U shape, but you'll see later on that he's refining the body, and it's getting less and less pieces of leather to go into one body. And you'll see that, I can show you back up, and we'll do side by side, Circle Dot, Brevity, much fewer pieces of leather. But, and see that single center seam? The Brevity body has the U shape. The Circle Dot, no U shape. But it still has the gusseted joints and the same swing arms.
Yeah.
But there's a lot less pieces of leather.
Okay.
They do have great derrieres.
And the circle dot now has a little tummy,
Yeah.
Yep.
just to make it more toddler-esque. It's more of a toddler shape, though.
So let's back up and show you I wanted to show you how fabulous the jointed body of a Bru model is and this is from that Brevity period. It has a Brevity head, and at the time they're competing with Jumeau. Jumeau did their Bebe and Cassable with a composition body. Now Bebe Bru had made very fashionable, or their fashion dolls had very elaborate wooden bodies. And so for his deluxe doll, he made an elaborate wooden body. It even has jointed ankles.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah. And these are very rare. They only were in the catalog for Bru for a couple years. But I wanted you to see how fantastic it is. It's all pin jointed, carved wood. I also have some shoes here for you to do a close-up. I'll turn this one over like that. Can you get a good shot of those?
I'm working on it.
Okay. So you can see this is the early shoe, and it has that square toe box. It fits over those big leather feet.
Yeah, we saw those big toes.
Because they're made out of leather, they're sort of clunky and square cut, and so the shoe reflected that. And you can see the original scrolled B. We'll show you later on how the trademark changes on the shoe. Okay, let's move into more circle dot parts. We showed you this circle dot breastplate, and we have a circle dot body here. We talked about the changes. The markings on the heads, just like before, in the Brevity period, there's just the circle dot and the size number, and that goes the same with the breastplates. They're usually just marked with a number. And then sometimes they're marked déposé. And
Just coming in to see it.
all right, you see the déposé?
Oh yeah, I see it.
So déposé is like registered. And
Okay.
so that's what that means in French. Some of the later circle dots, they did mark Bru Jaune. So this is a circle dot plate marked Bru Jaune.
Just trying to show my friends here too.
Got it?
Yeah, I think I see it, yeah.
Great. You can see that the breastplates were lined with kid, and so the head fit in there, and the attachment would be fastened down there.
Oh, so the kids, it didn't break, right? So the bisque it wouldn't be touching each other.
And then they were attached to the body. Now this is larger.
Yeah.
We're making a monster, Frankendoll. But see how this is cut out? Later on in the Bru Jaune period, we'll show you it's no longer cut out.
Okay.
So that's a good way to know that you have the right shoulder plate for a circle dot because it has the swing arm. Later on, they developed a different attachment, and they were able to make a socket there, so that's why it is a full hole there.
Okay.
Okay. Before we move on to Bru Jaune, I want you to feel these hands from.
Now those look like original circle dot hands.
Right? Now feel this hand. Now the reason why I brought this out.
So these hands
us-
right here are really smooth and shiny.
Okay.
And these hands here are a bit more like coarse, a little more rough.
Right. But these look really good, right?
They do, and they're a lot bigger. They're a lot easier for me to see.
Because the arms hung down, there's a lot of broken fingers. And what has happened here, these are actually very well made reproductions.
Oh, these are reproductions?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason why I wanted to show you is, sometimes when something is,
Because look what happens.
apart.
Hold
on,
they
I can't-
swing and they break.
You're floating around. Stop moving.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see how they would do that because they're
Yeah.
just flopping
They're
down like
flopping.
that.
Right. So, you do find them broken and you can have them repaired, and sometimes they're missing completely. So it's okay to have reproduction hands as long as, especially if you're buying one, that you know it is. And one of the telltales is feeling that bisque, knowing that it's smoother, understanding. But, there have been some really good reproductions made of that.
Okay.
Let's move on. Bru Jaune. Bru Jaune, Henry Chevreau, when he took over the company, it was really his task to make the bodies far more high quality and do a lot more flexibility, and he improved the manufacturing and they improved everything about the bodies. The heads were basically just a evolution, but he did sort of a revolution to the kid body. He was keeping it as the kid body doll that it was famous for, but he made it more flexible, better play value.
Okay.
One of the first things he did, so you can see this is an early, I wanted to show you this really quick. This is an early Bru period. See how the doll is no longer as chubby. It's slender torso, but still yet it has the swing arm and the kid legs.
Kid legs, yeah.
So one of the first innovations that he does, and they're now marking the dolls Bru on the heads and marking them Bru. And when I say June, I'm talking, it's usually BRUJNE.
Oh, okay.
And they're usually size numbered on the shoulders. The first innovation he does really, or one of the first, slenders the body. Then he has this great socketed arm. Now this is not all kid. This is metal that's lined with kid.
Okay.
And then he makes this great.
So that probably makes it more durable.
It makes it a lot more flexible and easy to dress.
Oh, yeah.
And then and a lot more play value if you can bend the elbow much more freely. And you can see on those early dolls, on the swing doll, see how it's just stationary at the elbow?
Yeah.
Now we have a lot more flexibility and it's fully molded and pin jointed. Now,
and she's got a couple broken fingers,
Yes,
which
and-
means maybe she'd be a bit more affordable.
well, we
for
have
me.
parts here. So let me show you.
true.
Let me show you this hand. This is the
Okay.
typical Bru hand. So it has, like the circle dot, the improvement of, instead of being banana hands, it has more shape.
Pose.
And then the pinky is sort of out and the index finger is sort of up.
Okay.
It's a graceful.
Yes, very graceful hand.
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll see German hands put onto Bru bodies, and once you get to know the look of a Bru hand, you can decipher, is that a replacement from a German, or is that a real Bru hand? And that's what a real Bru hand looks like.
Okay.
A little dirty, but so when he went to this new attachment, instead of tabbing them, he created this new attachment to the breastplate. And then the
Okay.
breastplate would be put on top of the body like this.
Okay.
And then they strapped it with leather, and a lot of times then you would get a paper label over that. So, and we'll show you that as we move on. Now this is an example of a full doll, Bru. It's got the slender body, but it's got the kid legs.
Okay.
Yet, it has a jointed elbow. And then what we like to call the full chevron body. This is sort of what collectors really ultimately like to see. Well, actually, I should probably show you this one first. See that?
Yes.
So, you have the pin jointed arms. You have the new joining up here. And he added wooden lower legs that were much more adjustable.
Okay.
And one of the great big features that he put in is it's still a kid body, but he's put a whole wire armature in here that allowed the doll
Like
more
a roller.
flexibility to allow it to sit. Now this one's
Okay.
stiff, but they were designed originally that this was a new joint underneath the kid leather. Instead of it just being a kid body through the torso, it actually has flexibility inside the torso.
Okay.
Okay. Now, then you do find, it's very rare, but you do find that they did develop a wooden hand and a wooden leg. So a lot of times you see the classic Bru is wooden lower legs, bisque lower arms. But it is quite appropriate to find a great Bru like this. And we have her undressed so we can show her all the parts. So it has, this was the original way they scalloped the bands. It has a scallop to it. If you look at the early fashion dolls, they use like a zigzag pattern for these type of attachments, but it's typical in the Bebe period to have scallops. This is a correct Bebe Bru label. And then you have wooden lower arms, wooden lower legs.
Okay,
Now,
great.
they fully developed it. Then At the very end of the Henry Chevreau period, you do find Bru Junes before the Paul Ricard era on a fully jointed body like this. Now what this is all wooden lowers, wooden upper thighs, and wooden arms on a composition torso.
And identical to the hands.
And if you check the feet and hands between these two dolls, you see with me?
Oh, hold on. Yeah, okay.
Identical hands, and they do have identical carved wooden feet. All the parts except for the torso were made out of carved wood. And you know, this is still a luxury deluxe doll. This is sort of like Henry Chevreau's model.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
he sold Becky.
Becky covered all the fashions, but I want to show you the Bru June shoes.
Okay.
So as you can see, because of those carved wooden feet, he was able to get rid of that square toe box and round it out.
Okay.
And underneath, they're marked Bru June Paris. You can see it's sort of tough to see on this one, but you can see the original
Oh yeah,
stamped
now we
leather.
got there. And we've got the numbers down at the toe.
Yep. And they have, a lot of them have this same buckle there.
Okay.
You can see if you back up this one, it has the same buckle but in a smaller size. Those are original Bru June shoes with the round toe box, but it's on a kid doll. So they're developing.
Wow, it's got quite a big sole on this shoe. Wow.
Yeah, they do have thick soles. And that's good that you pointed that out. That's one of the good things to see. So we've covered all the bodies. I don't know if we covered everything. I'm sure we'll have questions, and we'll try to answer
Maybe
them.
Bonnie has some questions.
Go ahead, Bonnie. Do you have any questions?
Wow, you guys are really putting me on the spot.
Do you want to go over and give her a test?
Why don't we go look at these again?
Give me back your
Just a
give me
quick.
back your friends here.
How about
Man, they're really putting me on the spot, you guys.
how about a quick test? What's that doll?
That's a brew.
Yes, it is.
All right, so is this the Brevity? Because she kind of looks more like a lady than
Yes.
some of these other dolls.
Yes, and
Good.
look at
That's
her
good.
body. What do you think about that body?
Can't really see it back there, but it's so she's one of the deluxe ones, right? She's got all the movable
What do we call that one?
wood. Brevity body?
Nope.
I don't know.
Starts with an M.
Model?
Yay!
Hey, I'm learning something, you guys.
And this one is
You're really putting me on the spot.
Poupée and
Poupée Impu,
that's it.
Good.
which was on a kid body. So this is
Exactly.
a leather body
This
in
is
here.
a
So
leather
she's
body.
just got her arms hanging here.
Exactly.
Okay, so she wasn't as posable.
Yep,
Exactly.
that's the
Okay.
Brevity,
That's the
but with a
Brevity.
kid body.
So these are still both Brevités.
Correct.
She looks like she's moving on. She looks way younger than the first two. So this was the next one. So is this one the model?
Well, you're close.
Well, you're close, but look at what's the marking on her?
She has I thought they weren't marked.
What was it? No, what was the next style?
What was the next style, and what's that mark
After
on the back of her
Brevity, you
head?
have a. I know
You
everybody
guys
at
gotta
home.
just help
Everybody
me.
at home is
No one
screaming
wants-
at the
yeah.
television. Circle dot.
Look at that.
Circle dot. Okay. She's the one with the chunkier cheeks.
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
And
Please don't test me anymore. Just tell me.
and this is the circle dot mold marked Bru June, so this has both marks.
Okay.
A lot of the black dolls they used, because this is a much more natural face, a fuller face, so it's perfect.
This one's a circle dot too, right?
No.
Hey,
Oh man.
I have a question for you, Becky. Did they ever make a Brevity with the black bisque?
I have never seen. Now, if anybody has had one or seen one, please write in, because
Yes.
I would love to see
Great.
a black Brevity. I really would. And then we have, all of these are Bru Junes.
Okay, these are all Bru Junes.
Yes.
They all look, I mean, they have their similarities. You can see the lips on these, and you can see that they're similar, but they all look so different.
Right, that's just because they're all painted different sizes, have different model, molds. You're gonna have an endless variety of faces, so you can see why nobody ever just wants one Bru.
I know
Particularly
that.
This has been really great, you guys, and I don't know if Andy has any more to say, or I've learned a lot, but I feel pretty put on the spot right
Yeah.
now.
I
And I
think-
hope you guys at home learned a lot more too.
I think you did a great job,
You
Bonnie.
did a great job, and you asked a lot of really good questions. And asking questions and reading and studying the brews is the way to understand them.
Sounds like I've got a lot of reading to do.
Yep.
I have your library card.
We have a brew book upstairs for you. So.
Okay.
I know what I'll be doing after this.
Yes.
So you want to say goodbye to everybody, Bonnie?
Bye everybody, it was great seeing you guys at the virtual doll convention, and thanks again to Rachel for putting this all on.
Becky, you want to say goodbye?
Oh, I want to say goodbye to everyone, and if you haven't been to our shop before, we're open by appointment, so we have dolls available 365 days a year.
Are all those brews available?
No, those brews are not available.
So I don't know. I say goodbye to everybody. Enjoy the convention, and we'll see you soon.
Bye!